All right, all right, all right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conversation 2 of 4 with this month's guest, Quincey Xavier. For those of you who might be new to me, my name is Jynnette the Oracle. I run Anderson Alchemy. And this year for 2022, I decided to begin a series called Conversations with the Oracle to basically have a more focused way of exploring all the different things that um, have interest to me and also share people in my world who I find to be phenomenal. So Quincy is one of those folks. So
Thank
I'm
you.
grateful that Quincy's decided to be here. Welcome, Lisha Curl from New Jersey, drinking water. Come through with the water. Today, I am drinking Earl Grey with a little bit of honey and soy. And then, of course, I do have water because water always stays on deck. What are you sipping on, Quincy?
I have the remainder of actually, you know what? I'm going to do a refill because I do a French press in the morning and then I have a fantastic thermos that does a wonderful job of keeping my medium roast thesis. What is it? Ceremony Roasters here out of Annapolis, Maryland. They do this thesis blend that is fantastic. It is my daily drinker.
Okay, very
If you
nice.
if you sit down for a coffee and conversation in person, you undoubtedly will have this coffee waiting for you, and some sort of a green tea floating around always. Yeah, there's uh, yeah, there's some version of it. There's always some version of it. It's just the way it goes.
Nice.
So, how are you doing today? What's going on? How's
I'm
everything
doing
going?
well. Well, first, for folks who are coming in,
Hmm.
you know how we roll here, or you might not, but let me remind you. You don't walk into somebody's house without saying hello, so you don't do that here. I know that we're like on the webs and folks just like, slip into anonymity, but as you come in, please say hi to everyone. Share where you're joining in from, what you might be sipping on or eating, and if you have any particular questions or topics that you want us to talk about today, or possibly in the future, feel free to put that in the comments, and I will definitely make note of it. Um, yeah, but that's that. I'm joining from sunny California, and it is actually sunny. It's basically like going to be in the upper 70s and 80s all this week because apparently
Hmm.
winter's over now.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow. I would love for that to be the conversation that takes place in Washington, D.C., but it has been quite chilly and windy for the past little bit. It just got sunny, so we're enjoying that. So it doesn't
that's
get,
because I'm here.
of course, inner sun, outer sun, these things go together.
Yes.
It's fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but to answer your question, I am doing well. It's so interesting. So today's title for the video is "What is Love?" Right?
Yeah.
And what's been so interesting is that over the past week, I don't know if everyone else has been feeling this too, with the astrology in particular, but just so much like warm, lovey dovey, and even
Mm.
sexual energy that's just been like oozing. And so I've just been like, okay, I'm just going to lean into it because it's a lot of, feeling a lot of the Pisces influence right now. And
Mm.
so that's been a really nice energy to sit with and to um, kind of be at what my new edge is, I guess, in terms of experiencing and accepting and receiving, um, yeah, just this type of love and this type of experience of existence in general.
How does the
And yeah, just like
Pisces
how that flows.
how
Go
does the
ahead.
Pisces energy feed into now versus any other time in particular? Unless I'm asking I might be asking too crazy of a question.
No, no, no.
Okay.
So Jupiter is in Pisces this year,
Hmm.
along with Neptune. So Jupiter was the previous ruler, quote unquote, in astrology, or archetypal planet associated with that zodiac sign. And then once we discovered the outer planets, Neptune took over that role. But basically, we have two of the biggest planets in this sign this year. And Pisces deals with existence,
Hmm.
consciousness,
Oh, okay.
the metaphysics, arts, creativity, divine everything. So divine love, divine. sacred birth, sacred death, like just all the things that we associate with that which is beyond our understanding is Pisces. It's also, surrender,
Hmm.
surrendering to that which is beyond understanding, faith. But on the negative side, it can also talk about addiction, um, mental illness, obsession, things like that. So I've been experiencing the more quote unquote positive aspects of that. I've been feeling that a little bit more intensely. Um, so that's been feeling really yummy, but that very much will be present through the year for
Mm.
sure. And I think there'll be definitely there will be points in time where there'll be probably more intense experiences of that. But yeah, I've been floating. I've been floating really nicely. So I was like, all right, this is a great way to like come into this conversation about what is love.
Mm. I love that leading into these conversations, it's like there's what's the conversation is the title, and then there's like the the body of the conversation, like what we're thinking about, like in relationship dynamics and those pulls, and then we get to like the day, and like on the day, there's always like the way in which the weather is, or the way in which the song hit you, or the way in which like I'm listening to this one. What is it? I woke up this morning listening to Carlos Cipa, Cipa, and he's a pianist, and he's playing all of these different songs, but he includes the style of piano he's playing as well. And so one of them's on a Yamaha 81 upright. So I'm sitting there listening to it. I'm like, this is amazing, right? And there's something about like when you're talking about how you're feeling layered over top of like what's going on zodiac in a zodiac from a zodiac perspective, then like the energy you woke up today with. That's just like it's like I wonder if people can hear their own music sometimes.
Mm.
That's like just something to sit in for a little bit. You know, I you almost want to take a moment and just be like,
So I was watching some anime last night, as I am wont to do as the black nerd that I am,
card
and
carrying.
so
You
many things
understand?
pop
We're having to give up cryptocurrency because we're trying to save the earth. So that's a whole different thing.
up. But I was watching new episodes of Demon Slayer, and in one of the early episodes, because I only got through like the first three, um, one of the characters was like, he was referencing a character's sound, and his character had like just passed because he lost a battle. It was like, the sound of this person like made an impact, and I was like, ooh, I've never heard that referenced in any anime in general, but also in general, period, outside of possibly spiritual context. The closest I think we get to is talking about vibration and frequency,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but about the sound of a person,
mm-hmm,
meaning because sound necessarily is relational,
mm-hmm,
right? You can't have sound if you don't have something to send or a message, a beingness in existence,
mm-hmm.
and a medium through which that can be delivered, and the capability to receive and interpret. Right? Like it's composed of all that. So being able to say how you're impacted by a person's sound, it was just like, oh, like that's an impact. That's love. That's a you to you impression.
It's a it's a crazy thing to think about when you said reception. And it's a crazy thing to think that the most powerful signal is only as good as the assembly, the array, that which is able to receive it. And not to say that, not to put like us back in that like weird competitive space of like I don't have enough and I'm missing too little or whatever. It's like no, it's just like you already have the most sophisticated system that we at least know of to receive as many systems as we possibly can. I mean, sorry, as many signals as we possibly can. Systems, goodness. And so I just wonder, like, in all of this time when people are doing a lot of work that is consumptive of love, um, and kind of puts love into a capital marketplace, like, I wonder what happens when. Um, I wonder what happens when those spaces are instead, like, that energy is instead used to, like, on that internal work of you and, like, your music, your sound, when you're talking about your, like, your frequency, your vibration, like you said, that distinction, your sound, and, like, your music and your lyric and that poet and just all of those things, like, it just, like, yeah, I agree. That's a long way of saying I agree. Yeah.
Well, so that's you brought up the thing about reception, and I think that is speaking. The way it's hitting me is that that's speaking directly to what I've been experiencing this past week of like, oh, like I'm just experiencing so much of just the sound of existence and the divine in relation to me, and it just feels really yummy. And
Okay.
like I haven't, I'm not to say that I haven't been here before, like I'm sure I have, but like it's just been a while,
Mm.
especially with the pandemic. um so yeah, there's more sensitivity. It's always been there, but again, if you don't have aspects that can pick up all that's available, then you don't know that it's there or that it's even being transmitted.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something in particular. I think there's something in particular about the, like, this particular era where that we're in. This era of confinement. But what we've had to numb or dull or otherwise mute in order to be okay and cope, and possibly even, like, that new sensitivity is like, is that a enlivening of a framework that, or a system that was already there to feel, or is that something new and different that wasn't available before because we haven't had to use that to survive in this way in this lifetime, right? Like, is that something, is this something particularly, I want to be like, it's ancestral, yeah, they coming back, they're telling me messages, but or is that just a system that's just there, like, we just have it and we just don't use it because we're always bombarded with everything all the time. Always got to go, always got to move, and now we have to stay. And so, yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it's that it's we're already literally hardwired that way biologically. And so there's been an incredible opportunity for many, if we've been able to take it, to slow down and to realize how much we are actually receiving and how much we are unconsciously and subconsciously doing our best to buffer so that we don't get overloaded. And personally, like that was a lot of what I ended up having to do um, last year, is just dealing with how much had been received and impacted in my body, and giving time for a reset to happen because it was too much from year one of pandemic, right?
Hmm.
But it is inherent. Um, I know that through personal experience, but also, even if it wasn't a personal experience, I would still probably posit it as being that thing because, in general, there tends to be, at least in this culture, a tendency to assume that there's something outside of self that's going to be the answer,
Hmm.
because it's this idea that like whatever is here now is flawed. Um, and it's like, no, there. there actually is no mistake. There's no flaw in the design. We were talking about that last the last time.
Yeah.
There's no flaw in the design, um, especially at a basic level of our biology for the most part. So we're really talking about our ability to perceive what our body is doing and receiving, and all that's there, rather than anything else.
Hmm.
And this gets to, because with this thing about love, I wanted to in particular focus the conversation on the varying demarcations that we both have for different types of relating with others,
Hmm.
um, different contexts, different levels of closeness and intimacy, and how that relates to um, what I term as the soul or true soul nature, and you use the word you or I, capital, right?
How about
Um,
you? I don't know about that I part. Ooh, that gets real tricky. That gets ooh, yeah. There's a bunch of yeah. That I thing. It's real. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
so, do we want to start from the outside in or the inside out for our definition? So we have like a framework because
Is there like I mean that's the good old fact like that's Sadia Hartman and Fred Moten having the questions about the outside when you're trying to go from outside in, and they'll sit there and say like what is this once you get outside you try now you're trying to get outside the outside, right? Because like inside is the oppression, the persecution, all the things, and so you're trying to get outside of that, right? But then once you get outside he gets outside and he's like I go into the physical outside and I feel like a runaway. So it's like that fugitive like so yeah, let's start with the outside.
all right, so we have
Because we know inside. Well, I guess.
huh?
No. Please, sorry. Continue.
We have professional relationships, um coworkers,
Yeah.
peers,
Yes.
those um those for me would be like just slightly, well, I was about to say little slightly closer than strangers, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily as much, because I think about past jobs and it's just like, no, these are strangers, but these are people that we have a common goal, so that there's a bit of camaraderie that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but there definitely, for my part, is not a desire for there to be anything more than that.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm not looking to make my coworkers friends. Like, if
Well,
we,
so like you already know. So like if you're starting at a from a public so we're going public like outside so we're public professional. Me at my most singular way of being. Like
mm,
this is the thing that I do specifically to the point profession, right? No, like when I show up, I can be however I am sideways. I can still this is my skill. It is honed. This is what I do. Sure, there can be friends there, but they're going to be friends around that one thing. They're not prepared for any kind of they can handle a little bit, but like leave that home shit. Like stop, right?
mm,
So yeah, that's kind of friend, and we would always ask, but along that with that particular frame, like that particular node, like there's so many possibilities of a person can be. Like I just take writer, poet, or speaker, yeah, speaker or orator. Um, but there's so many different ways that those unfold that of course they can be like layers and all types of feeling and depth there, but it's just not the entirety of a person, therefore that's the public professional instance. And so I you know yeah, oh Jim, we're friends, work friends, we met at work, we hang out, what kind of beer does what kind of drinks do we coffee cool like I could fill out a form real quick on like the things because like it's all very formulaic.
so would would it be safe to say that that is the brand image?
I mean, that's if you're coming from a branding perspective, you're trying to, yeah, you once you commit to, once you've gotten past, let's say, sale, right? So like somebody you sold in a critical mass of a thing, you have an audience. That audience likes to see you a particular way. If you want to add robustness to a brand, you give them more than one pillar, one more than one. Like they have a central ethos, but it's composed of traits and
Yeah.
ways of showing up that respond that correspond with the community they're in. So like if you're talking about a person, that's where it gets tricky.
Hmm.
That's
Well,
where it gets real tricky.
I like this this singularity versus multidimensionality thing because that I like that as a spectrum of that. You know, the more the less intimate we are, the more singular we are in relating to another,
Mm-hmm.
and the more intimate we become with a person or closer. I just like intimacy because it speaks about
It's in the
getting
first two
to,
letters. In.
huh?
It's in the
Yeah,
first two letters. In.
yeah, and
It's it.
yeah,
It's where you want this. It's what you're trying to get to,
yeah,
right? The reason
yeah,
why this video works is the closest we can get to in person.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so like the closer, the more intimacy that's there, the more multidimensionality comes through and gets to be experienced. There's more of you that gets to be shared, and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa with the other.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You're not.
Yeah.
I think with I don't
So
know
how is that a
anybody
form
from.
of love? Because we started talking about, well, we touched on love last week, um, and when I'm using love, I'm using it as existence
Mm-hmm.
itself, right? Rather than just uh, romance
Mm-hmm.
or the erotic, um, or parenting, or all those things, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, what of that singularity of us is love, or in that expression is love?
So I think, you know, it's talking. I think there's two things happening, and two things can be true. Many things can be true, but I think in this particular instance, there are two things that are happening. One, of particular note, is broadening and also taking a moment to call recognition to love and its and like where it comes and like what's going on with it, right? Like can there be like can it love exist in that singular instance of being that is demanded as of your profession? Where does love originate? We're going back now. We're already on the outside, and you're asking an inside question, right? And so, like, of course, but what's in the way of it at that node, at that part, like at that far out? Like, what gets in the way of that love being fully expressed as an inward to outward expression towards that end? And that's where I would have to like legitimately think. Like somebody would have to legitimately take time and contemplate and think and like meditate, clear your, and like then contemplate like what is in the way of love showing up in the expressions of professionalism that I have. Well, if you're an ER doctor, probably the entirety of the operation is one, and also the person that's checking people in and making sure they get things done properly. It can be in any and everything. But the emphasis is on the can and possibly the will, because you have like when things are internally generated, right? And this is kind of skipping back, right? But when things are internally generated, then like the question becomes, what's the cover that's getting in the way of that expression? What's the collapsed bridge? What's the collapsed link? Is there trust? At a very very private internal level, is there a breakdown of trust? At a very very extended level, I can. It's real easy. Hey, as a writer, hey, I understand. Like this whole sequence of this sentence doesn't make any sense. Let me let me write it a different way, right? Just a light care, just just a mist, right? Um, at an internal level, there might be higher demands. That's not it. There's more at stake because of the like the multiplicity, the multitudes that are contained at a closer and an interior level. And not to be confused, when we're talking about Fred Moten and Sadia Hartman's Inside Outside, they're talking about an environmental space as well as a metaphysical space or an internal, like interior spiritual space. Here I'm talking about like that you metaphysical, like that you that everybody argue about language over. It's the soul, if it's you, if it's this, if it's that. Sure, yeah, let's all nonstop. That's great. I love. Yeah, we can. Let's debate that all day because like these are
Oh,
all the ways in which it shows up.
one second. Let me close my door because there's another neighbor like blasting more music. So
Oh wow,
that got really loud. One second.
do your thing.
Apologies. That just got really obnoxious.
That will happen.
We went from Biggie Smalls to another neighbor blasting like some hardcore metal. So we won't do that.
These things go together. Just different people. Well, depends on if it's metal, if it's hardcore. Depends on who you like, where you're going. Like the DC hardcore. Oh man, look, never mind.
It's not
Like,
that. It's not that.
and it
Anything.
also depends. Yeah, all that stuff. All that stuff is
But
wild.
yeah, continue your thought. And there's something that you said that I definitely want to touch on.
I mean, it just, like if we're talking about at the full at the if we're skipping over, like I'm skipping over a lot and just going straight into internal because obviously that's what you want to talk about. You're like, I don't want to talk about that outside stuff. So can love be expressed at an external, at a fully outside space? Sure, it can be totally. And don't believe me, just watch. Like you'll see it all the time. You'll see it happen in all types of places, and it won't be that glossy stuff. It won't be that like yay happy. It'll be that genuine thing that comes from the interior of a person, and it's found a way to like leak out, to come out no matter what. Love in and of itself, I just have come to the conclusion that love is an unconditional force. Period. And it's generated in the interior of a person, um, inside the inside, like inside of all of those multitudes is that thing, love. And we're talking about love today, but I think they love, joy, peace, hope. I think they're all there. I think they all hang out. I think they all do the thing. Um, I don't. And so when we're talking about love and its unconditionality, um, I often think that the thing that really messes it up is how what other things get collapsed into love or over love that aren't it. And we talked about trust and loyalty last week. And I think those are two major ones that people that like I mean, I put that on everybody because there's a lot of folks. There's a lot of folks. So I'm sure somebody else has a different formulation and permutation that will make me be like, oh, what? Oh my goodness, I never even thought about it that way. Thank goodness you're here on this planet to experience that in a way and be able to articulate in a way that helps me make sense of this thing called life and love and hope and joy and peace. Yeah.
Hmm. So you said something that I want to touch on, because as we brought up the inner versus the outer, I recognize that my mind immediately collapsed into
Hmm.
binary thinking or separationist thinking, that there
Yeah.
is a difference between what's happening inside and outside, and there's not. So continually
Mm.
working on the lie of separation. as continually on the path of spiritual maturity.
Well, I mean, yeah,
So getting to though what you said about um, that when you get closer to the multidimensional experience with another, that there's not really a demand for more, but that there's more at stake, right? But why? Why do we make the choice that, and this is a societal question, community question, why do we make the choice that stakes are higher and there's more care and consideration the more intimate we are with someone, rather than holding that same high stakes with those we have less intimacy with? Because that points to a thing of like, oh, if I, at a broader scale, if I don't have a direct connection or experience to a thing, to a problem, to something that's available for healing or transformation, then I don't care. I don't engage. I can see that extrapolation to the greater side of things.
mm-hmm.
Also, I can see that there is an importance for having different levels of intimacy and access and care, um, because it does require a lot, and we do have to be good stewards of ourselves so that we ultimately can show up as our best in all relations, regardless of whatever types they are, and not spread ourselves thin. So it's a both and.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, being closer, higher stakes,
Mm-hmm.
and the choice we make to have and let there be higher stakes when we're close versus when we're not.
When you're close, you know how my forgiveness works.
Mm,
Right. when you're when you're out there, you don't look. When I'm writing, the the issues are grammatical, right? Like literally, where does a comma go? You can't hurt me with a period. Not yet. I can, but that's a whole different thing, right? That's a whole different thing, and that's just me showing off with words and stuff. But like, and
we love to
punctuation,
see it.
right? That's so you got to believe in yourself. Period. uh hmm, when you're next to when you're near me, in a sense that things are going on that are outside, most things are outside, but like that are truly outside of my like my talent, my skill, my expertise. I don't know what's going on. The direction that's is not clear, and I know that the next step that I make is a critical one. And you're going to be in that space, and that space includes all of my love, all of my joy, all of my hope, all of my all of my peace. Yeah, yeah. Those stakes are that, and so and those because those things aren't unconditional, and like I said, like you get to, like I used to always talk about this space as being like your soft and squishy space. Like this is where you're very sensitive. Like touch really means something. I don't even have room to listen to you. I only hear you, which is to say feel everything you say.
Mm.
And so I use things like trust and loyalty, right? The When you talk about sound, how you sound talking about me in spaces that I can't hear you, right? Because I'll hear it through other people that I trust, that I have loyalty to, and they'll be like, "Yo, this cat gets you." Oh, like they understand you. Okay, cool, great, all right, right, and that's part of like when I think about the unconditionality of these particular forces in something as an ecosystem that connects people, that like allows people to be nodes and networks unto themselves with others. I just like the only reason why we can't have cool stuff is really because we can't trust each other, and that shit boggles my mind. Like we could have the coolest things ever. We could stop so many things from ever happening if we could just like figure out a way to just like be like allow separation. We're You can be different, I can be different, and we can still connect on this unconditional thing that we have called I want to have joy, I want to be hopeful, I want to love. Like these are all things that we want. Like they're forced, they're there, and it's just it becomes a joke. It becomes trite, you know. And so those are the kind of stakes you deal because like there's possibilities of just a world like actually of people actually working to of yeah working in common, not the same. Thank goodness we're not the same.
In
Thank goodness
common.
people. Thank good people are just like figuring out ways to identify themselves outside of what we've been like. Thank goodness, because man, this is getting boring. It was getting light out there. Didn't like that. That stuff gets blinding. Can't see any distinctions. So yeah, um, in relationship, the progression of like you know those progressions and those movements, those movements from introduction to mutuality through to disruption and breakdown and breakthrough, like those movements are like integral parts, no matter if it's outside or inside, to your point of separation. That movement's still the same no matter what no matter what you're moving through in relationship, in in expressing something as genuinely like how do you make something more human than like the constraint of what it is to be human in this civilization and society, like whatever that is on terms that are like body, flesh, and like soul, spirit, like whatever that is, that coming from that place, like, and people will, it's in my religion, it's in my faith, it's the way I practice, and it's like, sure, cool.
I like that that cycle. I like that framework as a cycle rather than a checklist of like this is what you do to shift from acquaintance to friend, right? Rather than like this is actually the cycle we go through at any stage of relating, and then at some point, consciously or unconsciously, there might be a shift in intimacy, whether more in or more out, depending on where we are in our life.
Yeah,
Um,
those intimacies, man, those are wild things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ways in which they collapse and interweave and entwine and hinder one another or help and progress one another. They can almost make them feel that you'll start mistaking physical intimacy for sexual intimacy, and like those are not the same. And it's okay that that happens, but also when you figure out that they have a distinction there, you man, whoo, there's a
Yes.
whole nother world of just like you
Yes.
being cool with people.
Real talk. Like last
Yeah.
year, listen, we basically have been acquaintances and now friends
Mm-hmm.
for the pandemic
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And I remember last year in particular, I needing so much of the body support, I actually reached out to a few of my friends for physical intimacy. So I was just like, I know my body needs a baseline to entrain to, because
That's a good. That's an interesting
it's
word.
freaking out.
Yeah.
And to be able to have friends, and the ones that said yes were in particular male friends, but like they were cool, and it was physical intimacy, and it really helped me, like, and I was so grateful for it. um but like that wasn't necessarily even something that would be, I mean, it's not something I have had to ask before from them, but it also wasn't something where I was just like, feeling weird about it. But that's
Mm.
because I've cultivated, intimate relationships with the people that I call friends, i.e., like they're close to heart, they're in.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
they're in. They know the stakes. They know like, hey, I need you to come by. It's like that's like that is we got to figure out this timing. We got to do the things. Like I need to
Yeah.
like
And but I realized like a lot of people don't actually cultivate that
hmm,
in the relationships that they have, that they call as friends, with people that they call as friends.
hmm,
Um, and whether the physical intimacy is even a part of that or not, but it's yeah, like there is, and again, it might be a cultural historical thing here, that physical intimacy is not synonymous with sexual intimacy.
hmm,
And that creates not being able to know and understand the distinction, creates artificial stakes in romantic contexts, because the you're requiring the other or others that you're dealing with to provide all of the intimacies. And like we talked about last time, it's like somebody can't give you all of the experience. They can't be coffee bean and tea leaf and cola
that
nut.
just that doesn't taste delicious in the same cup. That's not what we want.
No,
And I think about like
unless it's a
humorously.
smoothie.
It's say it again.
Unless it's a smoothie.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I don't want tea with my coffee.
You can do
Anyway,
matcha.
I'm sure you could say it again.
Matcha.
So a matcha espresso, yeah, you could do that. Yeah, because you dropped it. Yeah, the military latte is what they do up in Chicago at this place called Swada. They do a military latte where they'll drop the espresso in a matcha latte, which is a whole situation of just like, how did we get here? But anyway, um, like I don't like cool.
Capitalism.
Yeah, just more
It's
money.
actually
Just
capitalism.
we can literally just make more money. What's the reason for this? We don't know. It just seemed like a good idea at the time, and you're willing to spend money for it. Forgot what I was gonna say. Um, yeah,
About the intimacies, romantic.
yeah. There's something about. I think about the bind. I'm always thinking about. I'm not always thinking about. That's not true. I think about so many other things. This prompts me to think about all the different like all of the intimacies that are available that we have no distinction, right? They get trapped up in one thing leads to another. They get trapped up in it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, funny comedy, but like it's a slippery slope, that type of stuff where it's just like, well, we want to stop this thing. Well, because we can't hug properly, We start seeking the energy from a hug and something that a hug that like is that requires more than a hug is. Right? And because we can't do handshakes and daps with enough intimacy in them, I, I'm gonna need to get closer, more involved with you in ways that like we're not really out there for yet, or like we are, and like not to be puritanical in that way of like we gotta set it back. No, like just being like I might just need a hug from you. That's it, and I need a real one, and like we don't have enough social everything to just have that as a part of what we do. Now, there's parts of it like that's just socially black, and that's just it, right? We just take care of a lot of stuff. They're like, oh, it's so cool. It's like also that's us doing things, so that way we can do this other thing called survive. But there's other shit that's like we gotta just step our game up. Like we gotta be better friends, and you know, or have something like a standard of friendship that just makes it so that way some people say something more than we're friends. Yeah, cool. When you come by.
So we're getting close to our time, so I'm gonna have us.
We're supposed to be
down
talking about love, but I'm sitting here being like, we need better friendships, right? It's a whole month of love.
But like that's love though, because like I'm sure especially we're in the month of February, right?
Right.
There's so much going to be focused on romantic love, which is important, but for me in particular, even that, if it's going to be something that truly is longer lasting, I'll say, because I was about to say meaningful, and you don't necessarily have to have that be the case with this. But longer lasting friendship has to be involved.
Friends last longer than romantic relationships, but ain't friendship romantic though?
It is.
Right?
Like, how many people, like, real talk,
how many friends
says
you
I
lost?
love you to your friends?
Well, you say like, okay, so we got it, right? Like we got that down in some of my particularly gendered relationships, sure. In my agender relationships, no doubt, like shows up way like because you get it. Like I totally. However, I wonder just like don't friendships go through that romantic curve? That same one just over a longer period of time where it's just like you're looking for friendships that go past romance, that do something else besides just be like, man, remember we used to go out and have a good time, and man, oh, and the girl, hey, remember we used to hang out, da da da, used to, oh, we high fives and stuff, and then life moves on in a way, and then your friendship just kind of, because they're much more environmental than like romantic ones. Romantic ones, you're like you, yeah, y'all, cool, us, depending on how your romantic circles work, right? And how, kitchen table you are with your conversations. And that can happen in monogamous relationships. Don't get me started on that shit. But like, I just wonder about that. Like you were talking about saying I love you and talking about sending gifts to friends, and like, I don't know, maybe we need to let some of that drip into like our, like, again, not to be so puritanical, right? And to say like, let's let some of that drip get into our friendships. Like maybe I need to start sending some people some flowers, like legitimate ones.
Yeah.
I've already sent money. I've already
Also
sent
that,
food.
yes.
Yeah, they've already sent food. So like maybe I need to start wooing some folks.
Money.
Like,
listen, but that's like
maybe I need to get some folks back. Like I need to woo them back.
We send just dropping $20 like here you go. Sending food, sending books.
Right? Like, maybe I gotta get that old friendship back. Gotta get that old thing back. I start hanging out. The way we used to skip in the park was like pop 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 pop, and now I'm just like just me by myself, just pop 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 pop. Don't sound good. And we're trying to figure out this confinement thing, and it doesn't seem to be getting less confining. They figure out new ways to do it.
So
sorry.
What? Why are you apologizing?
You know me. Always ready for the pardon for the ramble or the off tangential comment.
How are do you feel you need to be a better friend?
Per- Always, never say always,
Mm,
but always, and not as a brush off, but just I'm learning new ways, and I'm always looking at the other ways and just being like, not that they were insufficient, but just like we're just not going to do. Like it's the way I look at it's the way I look at my relationships. Period.
mm,
Right. I think maybe I look at them. I think I look at them with a similar eye of like, not yes, what did I do wrong? Right. Period. But also like, how didn't I show up? How was I less of who I was? Like,
mm,
how did I miss that person? Like, and I mean like miss, like I didn't get them.
mm,
And oh, maybe they weren't to be got. Yeah, 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 yeah. How did I not get that? And not to be complaining with myself or negative, but to be critical, to take my whole of self and to take my whole of me and that person, right? And the responsibility of like, man, I said I love, like friendship or romantically, I said I love you to that person, to these people. And like how that has matured since then and what that meant then. And
mm,
not to look down on it, but to like honor it
mhm,
by examining it and becoming more skilled with it. Like that article, 2013 piece, no, 2018 piece, Hope is a Discipline. I just think about each one of those forces being, like when it comes into being outside of force, when it comes into being, it's a discipline. It's practice. Praxis,
mhm,
right? Our
mhm.
philosophy people's like praxis. Hope is praxis, and they'll go start going nuts. Poesis is making, and da da da, and all the nerdy nerds with the wordy words. I'm one of them. Do the thing, but like, yeah, I wonder. I of course I'm going to examine that,
Mhm.
and yes, and also do myself the honor of like not looking down on it, unless of course like I was like, there's some things I had to go back and be like, hey, I'm sorry, or like you'd get apology later on. You're like, oh snap, they're saying like, hey, I'm sorry about what happened. You just, oh snap, I had no bearing on that. I had no. I thought that that was all me, and I was tripping. They were like, nah,
Mhm.
I was. Go back, like just friendships, relationships, like formalized like relationships, like just go back and like if there's something you're like, nah, that's sometimes, man, it apologizing in reverse like releases some people, man. I've gotten that happen to me where I was just like, because I was really crunching the numbers. Like I was trying to put it together. Like, what did I thought maybe I missed. I need to learn how to hear better. And like, granted, all of those things true. Like, I needed to do all those things better. Or not better. I need to be interested in them and interesting with them. The ways I did them weren't interesting; they were rote.
Mhm.
And so, like, how did I develop those to become over years and a decade and change and becoming like interesting, staying curious?
Mhm.
You know, um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think for me, it is that assessment of like, okay, where am I now versus where I was, what was needed now, and I'm doing this in all contexts, not just friendships, but just paying attention to what may be rote, to use your
Mm-hmm.
words,
Yeah.
because that's just how it's been, and not taking the time to really step back and be like, oh, I'm actually, I may or may not be that person anymore. So then now what do I need? How do I want to show up? Or how do I best want to relate in a way that's actually authentic and honest with what's here right now? Um, and from that place, deciding, the degrees and levels of intimacy and closeness and connection and care and consideration that goes into any type of relating,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
something that we can do beautifully with friendships in particular, because like you said, oh, I don't know if you exactly said this, but they have the potential to be longer standing relationships in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really can be opportunities for um, deep self-reflection and personal development, for sure, that necessarily impacts and potentially can improve or not all of the relationships in our life, because like we need a place to to practice, basically,
It,
because the stakes are exceedingly high with family. High meaning charged, rather. I don't even know it's high. Charged with family and charged in romance.
there's there's something about, yeah, because there's a this is how family acts. This is how romance is. This is what a partner's like. This is what a husband, wife. This is what a dot dot dot. This is what a friend. We have a little bit more leeway. It's a lot more. So then when you start saying like, look, you you remember, like I was just like, this is how, like, after having been through what I've been, this is how my friendship is constructed. Like I actually have scaffolding, and like this is what makes sense, to the point where I could look at it and go, somebody can go, that doesn't make sense, and I go, okay. Right. And again, not to be so like dogmatic with it, to say it has to be this way, but just to, these relationships are valuable. These people are valuable. They are not disposable. The worst feeling in the world is the feeling of disposability. That somebody can just like cast you off and discard you as if like nothing transpired. That's a different kind of thing. And so like, I don't know. I think when we think about, it's like, if we're going to do this thing and we're going to persist upon celebrating love, celebrate its origins, like as in ourselves, and making sure it's tight, making sure and not tight because that makes it to measurement, making sure we're cool with ourselves. Like, are we cool with ourselves? Cool. When we look at the expressions of love out with other folks, are we cool in those expressions? Great. Are we when we look to the outer reaches of like our expressions of who we are and ourselves, which are like our profession, the furthest reaches, is our love, our joy, our peace, is it able to get all the way out there? Is there something like that's making it so that way that's not a good environment? And not to say it's good or bad, but just like it's not the environment for that, or like I can't seem to reach that far, or, and I'm bouncing around topics, but I think that comes from like, I think that all of that comes from that. When we get further back to our original point, like when we start from the outside, like just starting to come further inside and looking at not the numerical volume, but the density of those relationships as you come further in. Because like my mom used to always say, she's like, if you make it to 40 with like a best friend, woo, woo. And like people are like, man, she was saying a lot about, yes, she's saying a lot, a lot about what it takes to make it as who she was to where she was. And she was like, if you make it this far and you got a ride or die, you done did it. You done did it. And like at the level of friend, not
Yeah.
friend, at that level, if you made it with a best, not a bestie, a best, got you. You're in Morocco in a jail trying to figure out what happened. They got your ticket out, and they don't have bread like that. Like they don't even, you didn't even call them and they knew you were stuck. That's how well they know you. They're like, I got one friend the other day told me if they don't hear from me in 24 hours, they immediately calling people. Immediately. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, that's just where I'm at with it. Like, I should be hearing from you. If I don't get a text or something, it's a wrap. I don't want to hear it. You know, too many things. You're doing too much, so you gotta check in. That's disrespectful, and I love those friends.
Why is that disrespectful?
So disrespectful. I love my privacy.
Yeah,
love
I'm the other friend
I-
we talked about this the other day about like
I
well,
covet my privacy.
no, I'm the person who is like there are varying degrees of like stepping into support, and it's one thing to like really know that somebody is just like, okay, you need to step in, and other times when they just actually need space.
Yeah.
So no,
I
get that.
understand the desire to act, but like I said, I have a whole line of stuff with like some with my art team where we're just like, that's our internal communal agreement of just like, we need you to be disrespectful. You gonna have to be like, we're all isolating folks. Yeah. Like, we know we're professional isolators. We know how to do it. Like, we'll do it and you won't even know it happened until 6 months have passed, right? Like, professional. So like, disrespectful.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we're going to... I can't believe you. You know what time it is? Yep. Pick up the phone. Yeah. Why? Because you know why. Because you know why. We're going to talk about your feelings. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Buckle up. And this isn't even me. This isn't me talking to people. This is people talking to me.
I know. That's why I'm cackling over here. I know.
Yeah, these people talking to me. Like, I don't want to. I got Jane. You ain't got a. I got a whole therapist. Like, we don't have to. Nope. This is friend. Oh. All right, fine. I got 3 hours to kill because I was gonna stay. I'm trying to act like I was asleep. I was up anyway.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. It is a whole pandemic sliding into a Cold War with hyperinflation literally bringing everybody else in. Like, it's right on time. So like, everybody's trying. Sorry, this is getting rambly. So I'm like, everybody.
No. Yeah, we'll definitely close. But I'll say, I do think that having those boundaries, those containers for varying relationships is what helps to contain the density, as you said, for them.
Yeah.
And navigating through the various expressions of what love is provides us an opportunity to practice that and to do that. For sure, if we'll take it. And yeah, our friendships in particular are probably our most important relationships that get the least amount of our attention in general. Not the case for me, but
nah.
Yeah.
No, I would disagree with that for you. Yeah. I think, you're a fantastic friend. Like, period. Like, it takes incredible humans to become actually, I'm not gonna take that back. I think you're an incredible human, person, and I think there's this other thing called being a good friend that you are as well. And I wish that could be like a title just put on a business card so that people just know, like you think it's like, oh, I want to be friends. Like, no, it actually means do not fuck with me. I know how to be friend. Like, I know how to like do not half step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like, well, what's the goal? Relationship. I want the relationship, right? You get to the wedding, what do you want? The partnership. You want the relationship. So like, yeah. That's it.
Thank you.
No doubt. Please. You already know.
I mean, I'm a Cancer for sure. It's like, no, it's the relationships, because it's like, it was an early conscious awareness that I had as a kid, my first conscious memory anyway, of being, homeless with my mom and being cool with it because I became like, I got really clear as a child. It got really clear that it was the relationship that mattered and what have us survive, not whether or not we had stuff. And like, it just, the decision was really clear. It's like, this is what's important because this is what will be here regardless of whether or not there's a home or whether or not we have stuff. Like, it's just, relationships are most important. And now it's shifted out of like survival, right? But that is like a core fundamental imprint on my conscience. And it was a decision that I actually won't even say decision. It was just a like, oh, this is important and this is what I'll strive for. Because it could have been something different from other people. It could have been like, I never want to be in this financial position again. Right?
I think you had it right the first time. I agree with your first person. Right? There was like, it was a decision. There was a thing that happened. You were thinking about it, and then things came by that informed your information. Like, you got information. We would say we got data. You compiled it, analyzed it in your whole smart brain, and you said this direction. Yeah. Done. And like from then on, choices only in this direction. And anytime it falls out, let me go back and look at that decision. You go back, look at it. It's as solid gold as that stupid ass sculpture in New York of that cube. It's that solid.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going this direction.
Yeah.
I can always count on that decision. That one's a good one. And that's like, if people went back and you examine your decisions, and if they got that you're like, man, this one, anytime I fall out of alignment with this thing, the sequence is off, the gears don't work. It just, let me get back in alignment. Let's run the sequence. Okay, cool. Got it. How are my relationships doing? Okay, yep. Because you got to be able to make it through. Because that's what I have these relationships. Not for, but that's what they do. Anyway.
That is a word. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
I didn't realize. It's like, oh no, that's my true north.
Look at that.
And it's a good way to check in and be like, oh, if things are going haywire or not going the way I planned, it's like, who am I in relationship with? Because it's probably a breakdown there. Because I pay attention to everything else, right? Or at least I pride myself on doing so and making good decisions. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. It's sure, I mean, you invited me into this place. I appreciate you for the invitation.
Yeah. All right. We only went 11 minutes over this time, so.
Here we go.
I was trying to stop this time because I know you have like your busy.
Yeah, no, I got back to. I got a session right after this. You already know.
Yeah. But thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who has joined. If you have different topics you would like us to touch on for our, the rest of this month, definitely put them in the comments and I'll make note of them. But yeah, God willing, you will see us next week, the day after Valentine's Day. We will not be talking about love. I'll have another topic for us, which I haven't decided yet. But yeah, this has been lovely. Have a beautiful day, Quincy, and everybody else. And God willing, I'll see you all next time. Bye.
See you next time.